this contract with the Air Force, to me, is like that's a domino falling in the right direction that can have an awesome. We're probably not the first company, a hemp company, and there's probably won't be the last either.
That's Abner Johnson, COO at Pure Shenandoah. This is the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. My name is Eric Herlock. Today we're going to be traveling virtually to the beautiful Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, where Abner Johnson and his brothers and sisters are building what to me looks like a full-spectrum hemp company, with cannabinoid production on one side and fiber and hurd production on the other, and educational resources in the middle. We're going to hear the story of Pure Shenandoah and their journey through the Valley of Hemp, from CO2 extraction to hempcrete blocks for the Air Force. But first, a quick sponsor break, and then we'll come back with a few nuggets of hemp news, and then we'll drop into my conversation with Abner Johnson. This episode is brought to you in part with generous support from Americhon Cast Hemp, a full-service hemp building material installer and distributor of the eReezy spray-applied hempcrete system. Contact Cameron McIntosh at Americhon Cast Hemp today to make all of your hempcrete dreams come true. Americhon Cast Hemp, americhon.com. This episode is also brought to you with generous support from IND Hemp in Fort Benton, Montana, where they believe in the goodness of hemp. IND Hemp is a family-owned, mission-driven, environmentally focused industrial hemp, food, feed, and fiber company, providing new opportunities for farmers and rural communities. Learn more at indhemp.com. Hey, good buddy, welcome back. Today is October 4th, also known as Good Buddy Day. So I've just got a couple of hemp news nuggets here for you. And so I'm not using the chat GPT to write the summaries. I'm just going to read you a little bit of the story. This first one comes to us from marijuanamoment.net. It's about genetically modified hemp plants. The story says that a hemp plant genetically engineered to produce lower levels of the cannabinoids THC and CBC may be safely grown and bred in the United States, the USDA has announced. The hemp plant was genetically modified and submitted for review by Growing Together Research, a biotechnology firm headquartered in Fort Wayne, Indiana. The company announced earlier this year that it had achieved the first known stable transformation and regeneration of multiple THC-free hemp cultivars, and in June announced it would work to increase THC production in cannabis plants. Growing Together Research said that the changes are intended to make the engineered plants free of THC and CBC and also boost resistance to the herbicide biolaphos. It says genes in the new hemp plants came from multiple donor organisms, including plants, bacteria, a virus, and at least one artificial sequence. And here's a story out of Minnesota on hemptoday.net. It says that Minnesota's governor said his hiring of a hemp shop owner as the state's cannabis czar was a mistake, and that now he intends to fill that position with a person who has a background in regulatory matters. Erin Dupree resigned one day after she was appointed to head the state's Office of Cannabis Management after the Minneapolis Star-Tribune newspaper reported that her business was selling cannabis products that were not compliant with state law. As director of the Office of Cannabis Management, Dupree would have been responsible for rules to guide the state's legal marijuana market. All right, so there you go. A couple of interesting stories from hemp on the internet. Anyway, so let's get on with today's show. Let's take our virtual trip to the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. Abner Johnson from Pure Shenandoah. Welcome to the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast. How are you doing?
Eric, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. It's an honor. You've been doing a great job. God bless you. It's cool seeing you here because last place was at the Sip and Dip.
Right, in Great Falls, Montana. Yeah, that's where we met each other out there at the IND Hemp's Montana Summer Hemp
Hemp
Summit.
Summit.
Yeah, well, first, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell me who you are and where you're from.
Totally. Yeah. So my name's Abner Johnson. I was born and raised in Harrisonburg, Virginia. So right in the heart of the Shenandoah Valley. My parents were from different parts of Virginia, but they met at James Madison University. Um, and they loved Harrisonburg, settled down there. Um, and then I have four brothers and four sisters, a big family. I'm the middle child.
Oh, wow.
Um, my mom started a business in Harrisonburg that did pretty well. So I've kind of always had an entrepreneurial mind. And, we just helped out with her business, folding t-shirts. Um, the business is called University Outpost. It's an off-campus bookstore and everything. But yeah, I learned a ton from her, and I was born and raised in the Valley. Um, I graduated from Harrisonburg High School. Me and a few of my buddies that I work with, we were in the STEM program, the first graduating class from there. Of course, everybody knows STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, mathematics. So I think that's where I got a lot of my engineering type mindset from, more or less. Um, then after high school, I went down to Virginia Tech for a year. I was in the ROTC program. I was in the Air Force branch specifically. And as much as I liked it, because my grandfather, he spent 25 years in the military. Um, Later, he'll be our initial investor that really got us started and everything. But he spent 25 years for the Army and a little bit more time he was in the White House for a little bit, but just a huge influence. And so I wanted to go down the military track. That's how I started. But at the end of that first year, I didn't have a scholarship available. So I just took that as a sign to kind of step back, reassess what I was doing and what direction I wanted to go into. And right around that same time, one of my older brothers, he was doing a capstone project for James Madison, but he was all the way out in Portland, Oregon. And of course, Oregon and Colorado were some of the earlier adopters to THC laws and everything. So he was doing some indoor grow operations that I got to visit. And it was the first time I saw living cannabis. And I think that's when I really fell in love with it. Prior to that, I'd been subject to the DARE program in middle school and high school. So my perspective on cannabis was a bit skewed. Just seeing it as a living plant changed my mind a little bit, and it made me want to learn more. So I started paying attention, started researching, and that's when I learned about hemp and how the hemp laws had changed from 2014 to 2018, slowly shifting. Virginia specifically started out in 2016. That was the first year they had a research program. And when we really got into the weeds was in 2018. So that was when we started studying and everything. Um, I read a lot into what JMU and the other universities were publishing, but everybody was focused on industrial hemp for the most part. Um, I noticed that, and then I noticed as well everyone's planting dates were really late because it was difficult to acquire seeds, which was also because the DEA still, it was Schedule 1 early on. So it was difficult for anyone to conduct research, and no one was really studying CBD. And if you were in it at that time, you kind of realized you could grow CBD under the hemp laws. Because for me, at least, I thought hemp was for just a male plant, early on before I really learned. Um, I thought it was just for textiles and all that stuff. But then when you really looked into the way they legalized hemp, they said, cannabis under 0.3% THC, right? And that had nothing to do with male or female. If anything, it says is any cannabis. So I took that, they just legalized cannabis federally in reality. And that's kind of more or less what started our whole venture into the plant, learning about the laws and kind of going from there.
So yeah, let's back up a little bit. Just I want to hear a little bit about the Shenandoah Valley itself. I've never been there. I know of it through songs. There's a few songs about the Shenandoah Valley. So tell me about the area, and then you mentioned Harrisonburg. That's where you live now. Tell me about the people of Harrisonburg. What's the town like?
Totally. Harrisonburg is very heavy with James Madison now that it's been growing a lot the past 10, 20 years. So whenever JMU's out of town, the population goes from like 80,000 to 40,000, 30,000. But it's a relatively small town, small city. Uh, it's one of the bigger areas in the Shenandoah Valley, which the Shenandoah Valley is just made up of the Appalachian Mountains. This is just a segment of it that creates this valley. Um, and, I mean, it's beautiful. Yeah, if you haven't been down recently, um, the autumn time is always nice because the leaves are changing, but we experience all four seasons really, really well. So that's why a lot of people like it. But oh man, just a beautiful area. 81 runs right through the Shenandoah Valley. So if you've been on 81 traveling north or south, you've probably driven through it. Um, but yeah, an awesome area to say the least. Glad I was born and raised here.
Is it a big farming community, big agriculture area?
It is. It is. They grow and do a lot of poultry as well as corn, soybean, um, a little bit of wheat. But Harrisonburg itself is more of just a city, and then the Rockingham County, and then throughout the Shenandoah Valley. Yes, there's a lot of acres, but very heavy. I think we're one of the capitals for poultry production. Yeah, there's a chicken house or a turkey house. It seems like every other mile.
All right. So, all right, you come from a big family. Your older brother was getting involved in cannabis. Yeah, some light bulbs went off for you. You're living in Harrisonburg. I imagine it's kind of a conservative area. What was the family reaction to, to cannabis?
Right.
What were some of your neighbors saying? Or maybe we want to back up and tell me how you started the business.
Yeah. So some of my family actually moved down to South Carolina pretty early on before we officially started the business. So there was like a little bit of a divide, um, while we were still learning about how the laws were and getting involved into it. But yeah, my older brother Jake, he grew THC out in Portland, Oregon, and that's what really got our foot in the door to the commercial side of cannabis. And from that, I wanted to know, what can we do in Virginia? Okay, we have these hemp laws we can work under. What can we grow under hemp? And we definitely, initially 2019, we for a minute we thought we were going to be growing some industrial varieties and maybe producing rope or something from the stalk. But that's when we really nitpicked the laws and saw that, okay, we can grow female plants for CBD that'll test under zero point 0.3 when they test it. So, and hold on, CBD at the time back in 2019, it was in every magazine. It was in a lot of news stories. So it was starting to create this, the bubble that a lot of people try to get in. We did a half acre our first year, nothing too much. Really tested some different planting times. Just one variety though, called the Grand. I know a lot of people grew the Grand back in those years too.
Where'd you get those genetics?
We got them from Boring Hemp Company out of Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, so they hooked us up. We started our own seeds, transplanted them. We did a little bit in a greenhouse as well to compare. And that's really what started everything. And we were pretty quick to market. We knew the first thing we were going to sell was just a smokable flower,
Okay.
which, from a 30,000 foot view, CBD flower, THC flower all looks the same when you don't really know.
Yeah.
So we figured that was probably going to start a little bit of a like how is the police going to
Like
know
no
the difference
controversy.
between these things? Right.
Yeah.
But we knew that there was going to be a gap in the market for bridging the farmers and the retailers because we were seeing it all unfold. Oh, wow. A lot of people are starting to grow all this biomass. There's not a single person who has an extractor like on the East Coast almost, or anybody that was taking anybody on. I remember North Carolina, they were really early to the game. So they had some processors, but they were charging an arm and a leg for genetics and processing. So we kind of figured, all right, let's get an extractor in the Shenandoah Valley. Let's be the company to help bridge that gap. And that's what brought us officially to Elkton, where our business and our headquarters is in Elkton, Virginia, which is just east of Harrisonburg, about 15 miles.
Okay.
Near Massanutten too. Massanutten is a popular resort that a lot of people come to.
So you've got a processor there now.
Yes, exactly. So our first we actually moved into an old building. It was an old Wrangler jean factory. It was built in 1921, and it was abandoned for about 15 years before we had acquired it and started moving in.
Well,
So tons of leaks, really old, but it has a lot of character, and it's like right in downtown Elkton, which now Elkton, so sorry, Harrisonburg, a little bit more liberal just because they're like a city, small city.
with a college.
Yeah, exactly. Elkton is very conservative. There are only like 2,500 people in this town, so it's much smaller. And our headquarters were right across from the small police station and town hall. So we feel like we have our security, taken care of.
Yeah. What were some of those early conversations like?
Well, the first great sign was the mayor came and introduced himself, and the mayor's like late 20s, early 30s, introducing himself like, "Hey, I'm the mayor of the town." We're like, "Oh wow, this is great." We haven't even been here for a day. We already have the mayor's phone number. Um, Everything will probably be okay. He was cool with what we were doing, what we were getting into. Although, of course, he probably had no idea what we were, really diving into. Um, but we brought, a couple thousand pounds of wet material into the town, right downtown, and just immediately stunk up, you know, a good portion of it. And the chief of police was just 2 seconds away from kicking down the front door of
Oh, no.
the next door neighbor. But everything was okay. They didn't end up doing that. They talked to the mayor. They figured out it was just us. A hemp company just moved in. Everything's legal. We're good to go. But fortunately, when we went to get approval, because we had to get, a special use permit to extract hemp in the town,
Okay.
and I went to the city council and did a good job with a presentation of educating them about what hemp is, what it can be used for, how we're growing CBD as a medicine. And we got, 6 out of 6 approval. And we just dove right into things. We already knew what kind of extractor we were going to get. We landed on a CO2 extractor, which I don't know if it's worth, diving into. I wouldn't mind. We have a short path distillation column as well.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
So we went with CO2 extraction. The main reason was because CO2 is a safe solvent off the rip. It puts out a crude oil that it's food grade and safe right when it comes out of the extractor. And so we're able to also put in material that's not fully activated or decarboxylated. So we can extract CBDA as well, which we use in a lot of our topicals right now.
Nice.
But the CO2 extractor, a nice clean way to extract, does about 7 pounds at a time. And then we piece together as well, roto evaporator and a short path distillation system, so that if we wanted to make a more refined oil, full spectrum oil, we could. And that's what we've been working with for the past few years now.
Okay.
Our distillate is awesome. We get into the upper 90s of total cannabinoids.
Wow.
And I'm a firm believer in full spectrum oil. We don't really sell any broad spectrum or isolate products for the most part. We try to just educate people on, benefits of full spectrum are vastly greater than, just one compound on its own.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Some of our distillate potencies are coming in at like 70 some percent CBD, a couple percent THC, 4% CBC, 2 or 3% CBG.
Yeah, that's a good profile.
Yes, and there's probably so many other cannabinoids in small amounts we're not detecting, but I think that's what has helped our product line be successful and effective for people.
Cool.
And, keeping the reoccurring purchases as well. So.
Right. Well, tell me about the product lines. What are you making? What are you selling?
So we started off like everybody else, or a lot of people at least, with the CBD oils. We did a few different types and different strengths, kind of capitalizing on different terpene profiles. We have our calm, we have our balance, and we have our energize. And essentially, we're just extracting different varieties of our hemp that have either high amounts of linalool, limonene, those compounds, we're separating it and stuff. So we started with the oils and then with topicals. And that's where I mentioned we really doubled down on our CBDA and topicals. At that, we started getting into the gummy and vape market a little bit more.
Yeah.
Try to expand our product line, listen to what the market needed. And ever since we got into gummies, right around that same time, we started really bringing on other white label clients and private labeling. When you invest as heavily as we did into processing and extracting, then you gotta fill the capacity of the manufacturing factory you have,
Right.
right? So that's why we started looking at small chains, helping them bring on their product line. And certainly has been one of the challenges, I would say, too, is how much to prioritize our product line while also helping other people,
Right.
because in a way we're creating our competition a little bit. But when you step back, we all kind of agreed, hey, better us making their product than somebody else in the market who doesn't really care as much or might not have high quality of a extract or oil or formulation. So whether it's our label or somebody else's label, we just really want to see more people using these types of products and benefiting from it.
Yeah.
So that's like our bottom line and goal.
I didn't hear you mention Delta 8. Are you doing Delta 8 production?
We did for a while, and then our state kind of flip flopped on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we never got into producing our own Delta 8. Unfortunately, well, maybe fortunately, it's kind of a lot to invest when
Yeah.
when you start a business. You can't just keep investing into more things and keep trying to
Right.
take on
You
more
got to
of the
pick a
industry.
lane.
You need to pick a lane and get good at it.
Yeah.
Fortunately, um, currently, three of my other brothers and one of my sisters, they work in the business with me day to day. And then a lot of family friends too.
Yeah.
And a lot of credit goes to those people who helped us start when, we weren't paying anybody. They were just volunteering and helping. But now, we've reimbursed a lot of our guys and family members with equity in the company so that
Nice.
they're, a part of the team officially. And um, we all just have that same similar vision and
Right.
mission. We want to help people. We want to get this medicine to more and more people. Um, so that's what really drives a lot of us.
That's awesome. So, sounds like you're a really successful CBD company down there. So, how did you end up at the Montana Hemp Summit? Because that was like a fiber and grain sort of get together.
Right.
So tell me about how you're branching out into other areas of
Yeah,
hemp.
totally. And keep me on track just in case I kind of go off a little bit. But so we've been growing hemp since 2019. Our second year growing hemp, we started growing specifically for the industrial uses.
Oh, okay.
So we started research. We
Yeah.
did 15 acres, then we did a couple hundred, then we did a few hundred. We imported some French varieties to start up, and that itself was like a little bit of a hassle, with the U.S. customs and
Sure.
stuff bringing in hemp seeds. But we brought a whole container of seeds and started just conducting research, essentially, dialing in how varieties do in our area, what pieces of equipment, going through the challenges of growing in our area before just trying to step into another processing lane. Um, but essentially, after the CBD couple of years, we had some farmers help us grow a bunch. We grew a little bit too much. And I quickly realized we're only going to need 3 to 20 acres of CBD every year for the next while.
Right.
Well, I don't foresee us really needing hundreds of acres of CBD necessarily.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a Debbie Downer because we wanted to see hemp, take over and be the new cash crop and help out so many people. And maybe some of your viewers and listeners know, but maybe some of them don't. Like one good CBD plant can produce 30, 40, 50 bottles of oil.
Wow.
And those bottles of oil are retailing, for $20 to $80 per. Um, so it made sense just on a value basis to go after CBD first.
Right.
Um, but the other piece of that too is we just don't need that many acres grown, which was, like I said, a Debbie Downer. We wanted to see a bunch of people, especially in our area, grow hemp and start coming back. So then that's where the industrial side comes in. Um, a few acres, maybe five acres or so, you can build a small house out of hemp. Um, but that's a good conversion rate, right? 5 acres is not a small amount, and that's one home. Then there's a lot of homes built every year in the U.S. So now maybe there are some higher demands for the industrial uses. So that's a huge reason why we wanted to get into growing for the stalk was, and I say the stalk first because we haven't even really started messing with the grain quite yet. We're taking baby steps here. Um,
Right.
but we started growing for the past few years, increasing, learning more and more. And then just this past year, um, there was a fiber processing line in Southern Virginia named Appalachian Biomass.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, it's a very sad story. Her father passed away, Mrs. Moore, and they inherited a pretty large ranch. And she's also a nurse and does some other things. It's just they had a lot on their plate, and the fiber processing line for them um, wasn't the easiest thing to tackle.
Hmm.
I mean, people in the industry will understand. It's not easy to get into it, and there's tons of challenges. And for a small family to be doing it on their own, it was difficult. So they parted ways with their equipment, and we acquired it and brought it up here to the Shenandoah Valley. And that's what we've been installing that line while getting ready to process these bales that we've been stacking up the past few seasons.
Okay. I was wondering, you said you were growing, a few acres here and there over the past few years. Yeah. What were you doing with it? Stockpiling it?
Yeah, just stockpiling. I think we have 1,200 bales, 1,200 like 500-pound bales of hemp
the big
ready
round
to
bales?
process. Big round bales.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Some of them might be 1,000 pounds,
Yeah.
honestly.
Well, tell me about that production line. What is that? What's it do?
I'm I would be reaching a little bit to speak specifically on that line.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because one of my brothers handles a lot more of that.
Yeah.
But I could speak generically, because I've been studying it. I understand it a little bit. My specialty, or where I really like to focus in, is, I don't want to say just research and development, but I'm a big, like, I like composites. I like making things. So we've been making hempcrete blocks in our retail portion, which this is actually a significant. I totally forgot to mention how we started our retail front about 14 months ago, 15 months
Oh,
ago.
yeah. Tell me.
So we knew we wanted to open because we wanted to start going straight to retail other than our online sales. Because it's still, to this day, most of our revenue is generated from B2B, so us selling to other businesses that are reselling our product.
Okay.
Whether it be a CBD store, a health and wellness store, small grocery chain, or a vape and tobacco shop. They sell some products as well.
Right.
We opened up our retail front, and a key piece of it that I made sure we did was we made both of our bars, like our reception desk, out of hempcrete.
Nice.
As an educational piece. So glad we did that, because it's been one of the biggest aspects for helping break the stigma of people just thinking that we're a weed shop. So that was, a huge. It just helps break the barrier a lot more. And then, so when people come into our store, the first thing you see is hempcrete bar, and then you turn to your left and you see this huge, not a mural, but some cool display posters of the cannabis plant broken down from the stalk, the seed, the flower, how it's grown differently, and what the uses of it are. And we walk people through that almost every single time before we ever tell them about our CBD products and things, because education is probably the most important aspect of this industry, where just so many people still don't know what the uses of it are, how it's different from marijuana, or how they're really very similar. It's just a lot to explain to people.
Yeah, and so every moment with these people, it's like an educational moment, a teaching moment. So that's great that you're doing that.
Absolutely.
Are these retail shops? Are they in Harrisonburg or in Elkton?
Ours, yeah, it's connected to our manufacturing facility. Okay. We have about 12,000 square feet, and most of it is for processing, but the front 3,000 is dedicated to retail and events. For example, this past Saturday, we had a cannabis infused dinner. So we did a four-course gourmet meal with their choice of either CBD or Delta 9 THC infused into their meal as well.
Oh, wow. I guess back up a little bit. And what is the situation with recreational there in Virginia? Is everything legal?
Not quite. It is legal, so you're allowed to grow your own plants. We have a medical program, so you can get a card and go purchase, but it's not open for just straight up recreational sales quite yet. That's been dragging out a little bit with Governor Youngkin in place. Kind of doesn't seem like that's a high priority by any means.
Yeah.
So it's likely we'll just see the medical expand here, and we're just in this past legislation, they cracked down and put in the 25-to-1 in place for us. And I'm hearing that this is happening in a good amount of states. Like
Explain that to me.
they're doing the cap on THC per product.
Okay.
So essentially, some states are like 2.5 milligrams of THC per product. That's what you're limited to. Or Virginia, for example, is 25-to-1 CBD to THC.
Whoa.
Very arbitrary, just thrown out things that were pushed that I believe were backed by medical companies
Right.
who want to earn more of their share, because so many people, and especially in Virginia, have been working under the 0.3% THC, and how I don't want to get into like the math all crazy, but a 3-gram gummy, we can fit 10 milligrams of THC on that, and that's right on the 0.3 line. 10 milligram THC gummy is a standard or a slightly high dose that people love. And those products, we're not the only ones that have been manufacturing them. A lot of companies in Virginia have been capitalizing on that, distributing it, and it's been taking market share from the medical companies.
Right.
They certainly haven't liked that. So it seems we saw Jushi and a couple of other medical companies signing over a couple $1,000 checks to a lot of people in office. So you just follow the money and you'll see what's happening a lot of the times.
Right.
So yeah, right now they cut that 25. They put that 25-to-1 out. So it made a lot of the THC dominant products on the market go away. It made some CBD products a little bit more difficult to manufacture. Fortunately, most of our line was CBD dominant, so we didn't have to change up too much. We just had to pull off all of our, like I said, our THC dominant products. And people love them. People love using THC in small doses or mixed with CBD for a better sleep aid, a better pain relief, things of those natures.
Yeah. I mean, people have been using it for thousands, tens of thousands of years.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, that's the current. There's a lot of states are doing injunctions because what our state did was go against the federal hemp definition.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever a state goes against the federal definition, those are usually good grounds for you to be able to sue and put an injunction in place. So that's where our state right now is at that tipping point. An injunction is going through that might allow us to be able to sell our normal THC dominant products under the hemp laws, which we could back up and say like hemp was not legalized so that THC could be sold.
Right.
That wasn't the point of this. So I'm in agreement that like that's not how hemp has been exploited the past however many years with these loopholes. And I don't want to say it's anyone's fault necessarily. I've talked to some of the people who helped write the farm bill. They didn't know exactly what they were doing, and they definitely didn't try to create these loopholes that people were going to be able to sell THC and synthetic cannabinoids under. It's just the way the market kind of goes. And people want THC, it's been illegal for so long, and people just want to start using it
however they can get it. Yeah. I mean, do you think having intoxicating hemp products kind of undermines the brand of hemp?
I don't think so. That's why we do so much educating, is so that when people are using a CBD product or a THC product of ours, they understand you're using like the medicinal flower. Yeah, it's coming from the flower. Don't get this confused with the stalk of the plant or the seed used for protein. Like these are all different uses here. And that's why we also we do the hempcrete, and we've been getting more invested into the stock because there's so many awesome uses for it. It's more sustainable than a lot of other things. So I don't want to say like undermines it, but yeah, it's definitely been exploited very heavily. It's just hard to deny people when we've been in tune with what the market has wanted, specifically in Virginia, and our area specifically doesn't have a medical marijuana processor at the moment. So the Shenandoah Valley has been underserved for what it's been needed. So people come to us, and a lot of them do just need CBD,
Right.
but a good portion of them as well are looking for small doses or good 10 milligram, 25 milligram THC doses that they're just unable to get. And it sucks hearing people are like driving up to DC and working with shady sellers and dealers.
Right.
It's just not as safe. At least, hopefully, a lot of the people producing THC dominant hemp derived products have been testing them for heavy metals, pesticides, residual solvents, and things like that.
I mean, I hope so,
Because
but they're
that's what
not
we do. And
required to, right? Like there's no
right,
oversight on that side of things. It seems a little dangerous.
exactly. Yes, exactly. So that's why I say it's not cool that that is how we've had to play under it.
Yeah.
It would be awesome to see these recreational programs coming about.
Yeah.
Um, Gosh, they're just so slow to open up.
Right. I mean, it's still just the marijuana stigma makes everything slow, I guess. People are afraid of THC.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, there's definitely a lot of another piece in our retail front is we have this timeline from 8,000 BC to present day, some of the ups and downs that cannabis has gone through,
Yeah.
and we're still just dealing with the people who grew up or had parents watch Reefer Madness, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people in the war on drugs, and
Yeah.
that's
You
just
got it
still
right there.
what we're dealing with. So again, like I've said it a couple of times, educating is number one. We got to keep doing that. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I
so
grew up
that's where we've been super happy.
I grew up in the 80s and it was all like Nancy Reagan just say no on one hand. And then they were also like selling us the 60s at the same time. So it was like, huh, the Beatles are doing this. Nancy Reagan's doing this. What do I do? Yeah,
Right.
the 80s.
So this, yeah, a lot of division, a lot of people being torn between it. Um, so yeah, it's been tough. But
Yeah.
to go back to like the whole fiber and the industrial aspect and why we did that hempcrete, um, we've been doing research on it and learning more and more about all of its uses. And one piece that was very cool to me is how tall it can grow, how thick it can grow, and at the speed it
Hmm.
can grow that.
Yeah.
Those all to me and learning more and more about carbon sequestration and how that works. Um, it clicked for me when I thought about it in a way like, okay, so we go to a gas station and we fill our car with a liquid and then it comes out as a gas, right? We're displacing what was once not in the atmosphere as a liquid into the atmosphere through this process,
Yeah.
And then when you think about plants growing, it's just doing the reverse of it. It's taking carbon dioxide that's in the air and it's converting it into a solid state of matter. So for me, I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is amazing. And
And
hemp grows so quickly too. Since we actually can sequester a lot of carbon um, through this plant and everything.
yeah, that for me, that's one of the most exciting parts of this. It's like if we could grow, hemp at scale, we could pull a lot of carbon from the
Right.
atmosphere.
And when we had heard about that, I remember at one time I was at the gym and I saw on the TV the military is trying to be carbon negative by like 2030 or carbon neutral by 2050, something like that.
Yep.
I think they said reduce half their emissions by 2030, whatever it
And
is.
they're looking into hemp for that.
Yes, it kind of sparked my mind like, hey, well, whether there's textiles or maybe the hempcrete, maybe there's some applications. So long story short, we ended up just this past July, I think we got a contract with the Air Force.
Nice.
Um, SBIR, it's Small Business Innovation Research,
All right, you cut out there a second, but that's the Small Business Innovation Research Grant.
for specifically hempcrete blocks.
Nice.
And so to me, we applied just out on a whim. We applied a year ago as well, but we didn't get it, but they gave us some good feedback. But they didn't say no right away.
Yeah.
So to me, that was like, okay, well, this is great. And then receiving that contract is a huge step in the right direction. It reminds me of Hemp for Victory, or early on when we used to mandate our farmers to grow hemp, or when we would grow it for our Navy in early America.
Right.
So history repeats itself, and this contract with the Air Force to me is like a domino falling in the right direction that can
Yeah,
have
for sure.
an awesome. We're probably not the first company, a hemp company, and there's probably won't be the last either. You know?
Yeah. I mean, a plant this useful, like it can't be held down for too long, right?
Exactly, exactly. And then just a random detail. When we started getting some samples of different fibers that are produced from the plant, or um, the material that our processing line previously had made through Appalachian biomass that I mentioned earlier,
Yep.
I started playing with these things. And my grandfather, he passed down this old 1993 Dodge Stealth to us. In the past few months, I've been just like your hemp guitar.
Yeah.
I've been doing that same concept with the bumper,
Oh, nice.
uh, which, the hemp enthusiasts will remember that Henry Ford built a car out of hemp, and um, I believe it was the panels in a resin or epoxy that he was doing. So I've been doing the same exact thing back here with this old car, slowly working on the body panels out
Right.
of the fiber. So
That's cool. That reminds me,
that's
actually,
really
we had a
go
conversation
ahead.
in Montana about that, and I was supposed to put you in touch with Jay Burstein, the hemp guitar maker in Vermont. So I will make a note of that, and I'll connect you
Yes.
guys.
That would be lovely because that guitar is very smooth, and I love the finish of it. If I can have that same finish on the car, I think it would be a pretty sweet contrast. It's very telling the way the stalks and fiber kind of show through that epoxy. It's like super, super easy to tell that it's just a plant material you're using there.
Right. All right. So you've
So
got the retail location. You've got your manufacturing processing center there. But tell me about like the actual farming operations. Are you contracting with farmers? Are you doing the grows yourself? Tell me about it.
sure, a little bit of both. We do um, a couple of greenhouses down the road from our manufacturing facility where we grow our smokable quality flower. CBD and CBG are the main varieties that we're growing. And then we use this season just one contracted farmer. The other seasons we've gotten up to like we'll have maybe four farmers. Um, but we supply them with the genetics. Sometimes we help them plant it, but they'll grow and then we'll buy back the biomass at a rate anywhere from like $3 up to $12 per pound. And that's kind of,
Is that CBD?
yeah, CBD
Okay.
or
All right.
CBG,
Okay.
CBG as well.
All
Yep.
right. But not for the fiber stuff
Not for the fiber. The fiber
because that's a good price.
we haven't officially purchased back because we have our own stock,
Mm-hmm.
but I think we're aiming for that like 10 to 15 cents per pound. But we'll certainly learn a lot more about how to grade bales and how I guess how valuable the material is once we really run it through our processing line and see how much fiber or how much hurd we yield. Because yeah, definitely noticed like a big CBD stalk has a lot more hurd in it than your normal industrial varieties for the stalk. So once we start processing some more material, we'll have a lot more information on different grades, how to pay out farmers on that stuff. But because we've been processing CBD and CBG for so long, it's pretty cut and dry with how we handle those.
All right. What genetics are you using now? Are you working with a seed company, or tell me about that angle of it?
Right. So that's actually where we met Robin. And for some reason the name of their company is escaping my mind right now.
Konopi
But
US.
yes, yes, yes. Exactly.
Yeah,
So they
Robin. I forget how to pronounce his last name. Distich, maybe.
yes, yep.
If you're
He
listening, Robin, sorry if I just butchered your name. Sorry.
he joined our team just a few months ago because he previously lived in the Czech Republic
Hmm.
and was doing a lot of global hemp trading and
Right.
trying to get seeds in the right areas. So he's the one who helped us bring in that container full of French varieties.
Okay.
And that's mainly what we've grown. We've grown a Ukrainian variety before. I don't think we've done anything Chinese yet. Um, but it definitely, from the Montana trip at least, one takeaway I got from it was every area, even within a state, are probably going to need different genetics that need different, not necessarily pieces of equipment, but the timing, the way they get so much more sunlight up north than we do in Virginia or down in South Carolina. Like these are very, very large differences in photo periods. So I think everyone's kind of figuring out techniques on really how to farm this stuff, but I think a lot of it is going to come down to perfecting genetics in each
Yep.
small domestic area.
Yep. Which is, you see all these universities, studying the genetics for their area. It's, it's still early, right? It's like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, things are going to be very different. But for me, it's fascinating to watch it develop, right? It's like I've got a front row seat on an industry putting itself together. So it's neat.
Absolutely, absolutely. And where we've been putting our focus is really just because a lot of people talk about how useful the fiber is, um, and how awesome of a textile it is, but at least to my understanding, like I'm actually I'm only 25 years old, right? So you can only really take what I say with so much. 25 years, I can only learn so much and do so much. But from what I understand, is we pushed textile manufacturing out of the U.S. back in the 90s. And we
NAFTA.
haven't really done much of that since. So like we don't have an infrastructure for textile type of production in the U.S. quite yet. And I don't know. I'm still learning more about the margins, but I doubt we'll be able to grow it, process it, send it out of the country, have them turn it into a textile, and then bring it back to us. Like that, I don't think that's going to work. Um, so really, our business structure or plan for the industrial side is let's work our butts off to produce some herd for animal bedding. We have tons of poultry farms local to us. We have a lot of people interested in building more hempcrete stuff. We already have this contract for hempcrete blocks that we're going to keep doing research in. So let's perfect getting some really good herd, and then as we continue, we'll see what the best applications are for the fiber. Um, there's yeah, so I think it's really, really important to look to your local area for what type of products should be manufactured. And I think it's going to be a different playbook, a different puzzle for every area to
Every
figure
region.
out on
Yep.
their own.
Yep.
Very, very like simply put. But yeah, the herd, we're going to get that out. We're going to do our best to produce that. But I think, with the whole carbon footprint slash just um, overall footprint, it makes more sense to work locally, and try not to ship things as far. Um, so that's definitely the route that we're headed down.
Yeah. Cool. Um, well, what else can you tell me, or what else do you want to tell me?
Let's see. Let's see. It's definitely been a very crazy industry. None of us are rich, that's for sure. Uh, we all work really hard for not too much pay. Like I said, we do it because we love what we do, and we know we're helping people. It only takes somebody coming back in who's benefited from the product, like they're in tears. Somebody they know is doing so much better. Like that's the stuff that really keeps us pushing forward.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you feel
and
it's
yeah,
like a calling? Do you feel like you're just sort of fated to be doing this?
oh, absolutely, absolutely. I haven't felt like I was in the right place until I was more connected to farming and processing this plant. Um, it's definitely seemed just that everything has happened exactly how it's happened. And yeah, I mentioned it just a little bit earlier, but I was born and raised Catholic. And ever since getting into farming more, I think I've been able to appreciate God's creation just that much more.
Mm.
From the biology of the plant to our biology, how all of these things interact. It's so complicated, but simple and beautiful at the same
Yeah.
time that
Yeah.
I think a lot of people can appreciate if they take the time to learn.
Amen to that. Yeah. Abner Johnson, it's great to talk to you. I love it. I love what you're doing down there.
Thanks, Eric. I really appreciate that, man. And yeah, like I said earlier, but God bless you, dude. You're doing God's work, getting this, educating people, helping everybody understand, break the stigma down. And at the end of the day, I'm certain you're inspiring a bunch of people. So thank you so much for everything you've been doing.
I hope so. That makes it worthwhile for me. I mean, I love obviously I love the hemp plant, and it's the people that I've met doing this work that just like keep me going, because there's important things to get done here. So I'm like humbled to be a part of it. You know what I mean? It's like
Totally.
I can't believe I get to do this, right?
That's a really good point. I give a lot of credit, and I think so many people who um, worked so hard on legalizing cannabis back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s up to this point, because it felt like we're taking a baton and running with it and doing our best to continue it. But we were handed the baton in such a great spot and at such a great time that
Yeah.
um, I feel overly blessed, and I want to do my best, and I know our whole company and family is doing our best to head it in the right direction. But we're so thankful for everybody before us who's really laid this groundwork.
Right. What do they say? Standing on the shoulders of giants.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so you said you have a lot of brothers and sisters, and some of them are working in the business.
Yes.
Okay.
About, yeah, five of us work here day to day. But then a couple of my other siblings down in South Carolina, we grew for our first time some hemp down there. Just 100 plants, like 50 CBG, 50 CBD plants
Mm-hmm.
down there to start getting the infrastructure. We want to start another brand down there and keep expanding.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're pretty much everybody's involved. My parents, they run now a senior care services business, and they've incorporated our products pretty heavily into there, and have had an awesome impact there too. So
Nice.
it's cool that my family's business, everything's linking back together.
Yeah. It's neat when that happens. So any final thoughts, things you want to tell us about Pure Shenandoah?
Just, keep an eye out. If you've tried CBD products that haven't worked before, check out our website. um, these different cannabinoid profiles are different among all products. Maybe ours are the perfect ones for you. Um, so definitely check us out, see what we're doing. We'll hopefully have some animal bedding and hempcrete hurd available within the next few months. So, keep a lookout for that. We always welcome, conversations. If anyone's curious about how we do things, want to learn more, to get connected somehow, we're always open and willing to chat. And in addition to that, I just want everybody to keep working hard.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Abner. It's great talking to you.
Thank you, Eric.
And I'll put links up to your stuff on the show page for this episode.
Awesome. I appreciate that so much, man. Really, yeah, big shout out to you for inviting us. Thank you.
All right, there you go. That's Abner Johnson from Pure Shenandoah in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. In the very beginning of the show, Abner mentioned that the last time we saw each other was at the Sip and Dip in Great Falls, Montana. I don't know how else to describe the Sip and Dip other than they've got a tank full of mermaids. All right, so keep it weird, Great Falls. I love what's happening out there. Anyway, my name is Eric Herlock. I am the digital editor at Lancaster Farming newspaper, the greatest agricultural newspaper in the world. Check us out at lancasterfarming.com. And I just want to throw it out there that if you or your company, whether it's a hemp company or a hemp adjacent company, are interested in sponsoring our show here, what we do as an advertiser or just as an underwriter, please get in touch. We could greatly use your support. You can send an email directly to me, podcast@lancasterfarming.com, and I'll get the ball rolling. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, thank you for listening to our show today. If you've got questions or comments or concerns, please reach out. Same email address, podcast@lancasterfarming.com, or call me up and leave me a voicemail, 717-721-4462. All right, thanks again. Until next time, I will see you in the newspaper.
industrial hemp.
Season 3, Episode 37 of the Lancaster Farming Industrial Hemp Podcast is copyright 2023 by Lancaster Farming Newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family. Today's show is written, recorded, edited, and produced by Eric Herlock. The music you hear throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.